Hello. So I was tagged by Brian at Bookish to discuss some frequently banned books for the Read Banned Books 2022 tag. And of course, I'm going to use this opportunity to talk more because that's what I do. So for anyone who isn't aware, I have made some videos that reference this in the past, but I was raised in the religious right, very much within a fundamentalist Christian, far-right conservative background. Growing up, I actually have first-hand experience with wanting books banned. I was definitely in the circle that was extremely anti-Harry Potter, and not for the reasons that a lot of people boycott Harry Potter now. I assume most people are familiar, but I don't know how much Gen Z is aware of the catastrophic impact that Harry Potter had on super religious people when it was in its prime. If you're not familiar, basically, ultra-conservatives and religious fundamentalists and some evangelicals felt that Harry Potter was demonic, was encouraging witchcraft, even so much as saying that it included actual spells and that people were getting into real sorcery from Harry Potter. Also that it glorified the dark side and all kinds of things that if you've actually read the books, you very much know is not true, but nonetheless, I was definitely told this a lot growing up, and I put many a religious tract inside Harry Potter books. Very sorry to anyone who used the same library as me growing up. It didn't really come up at the time because sadly it was not a popular topic yet, but it probably goes without saying that anything LGBTQ+ would have been completely out of the question. We would have been rallying against that for sure. Although I definitely had people around me that were kind of into Southern sympathizing and that sort of thing, that was not kind of the mainstream view for the far right yet at the time. For the most part, people were able to be happily ensconced in their perspective that racial issues were over. And so I think that that is a big reason that it is such a hot button issue now, is because Black people and other minorities are very rightfully so trying to drag people out of that perspective, and they do not want to leave that perspective. So that brings me into what I see as the very, very concerning trends in book banning over the last 20 years. Trying to ban Harry Potter is like nothing should be banned, but if it was, it wouldn't be good, but it wouldn't be catastrophic. From the early 2000s to 2010, 2012 maybe, there are mostly people objecting to language, sorcery, things that they perceive as inappropriate content. Around the 2010 to 2015 mark, it really starts to convert to people objecting to LGBTQ+ and race-related topics. And to me, that's an extremely concerning shift, because this is not overly concerned parents policing the language or topics that their children are allowed to read about. Now this is people objecting to other people's human rights being taught about. So the topic that I am slightly redirecting into is that people don't understand the far right, and that's understandable and probably fine for most people, but I think it's important to understand at least to some extent in order to be able to combat it. I find that when I talk to people who are not in the far right, have never been in the far right, they don't understand it, and they tend to have some misconceptions, I would say, and that's totally understandable. If you haven't been immersed in the perspectives and style of talking and everything of a particular group, I think it would be very difficult to understand it. And these days, I think even more so, if you are not receiving the same media that someone in that group is receiving, you have no idea how their perspective on the world is being shaped. And I mean, yours is as well, just by the media that you consume. So, in my opinion, I see people both overestimating and underestimating the far right. So first of all, underestimating, I would say that I see most people talking about this as if the far right, or even the right in general, is just a bunch of crazed KKK members who are rabid, basically. Some of those exist, obviously. And in general, the right is less educated as a group. But there are lots of people in the far right who are very well educated. And, I mean, education isn't everything. You can be uneducated officially and still be a perfectly intelligent person who does do research and think that you are educated on a topic. Doesn't mean you're right, but you can think that. So a lot of times people ostracize the right or people in the far right because the people in the far right perceive accurately that they are being assigned this identity of an uneducated person. It's also kind of dangerous to think that these people are unorganized. There are immense amounts of money and organization on the far right. A lot of billionaires have discovered that if they give the people of the right what they want on social issues, they will vote for them or vote for whatever candidates they want. So many billionaires have invested absolutely astronomical amounts of money into giving the far right absolutely whatever it wants. If you would like more information on this topic, the book Dark Money by Jane Mayer is a really good intro to the topic. But there is a whole web of organizations and funding and everything that is dedicated to pursuing the interests of the far right as an entry point to pursuing the interests of billionaires. So just as an example, there's an organization called Parents Defending Education, which claims to be grassroots, but some people claim, I can't substantiate this, but there are claims that they have ties to the Koch brothers, who are one of the primary billionaire founders of the far right. This organization does a lot of really, really gross and disturbing work combating social justice and activists imposing harmful agendas. On their website, they have an article called Following the Books, How Did the Indoctrination Happen? They have a really bizarre parallel to money laundering, which makes absolutely no sense. But then they, as far as I can tell, accurately discuss how ideas like critical race theory and discussions of class issues go from obscure academic theories to topics for books aimed at popular audiences. They mention my BFF, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, as one of the original books that divided people into oppressors versus the oppressed. Amusingly, because Pedagogy of the Oppressed is incredibly uninterested in any forms of intersectionality, most of the people reading this article would actually be categorized as oppressed because they are not super wealthy, but whatever, that's not the point. They draw a timeline of books that kind of took these kinds of ideas, including ones that incorporate race and other forms of intersectionality, critical race theory, etc., more and more into the mainstream and eventually into curriculum and children's literature. I don't think most of us would argue with the timeline. Most of us who don't support book banning or anything like this would say that it's a good thing, that would say that this just means that ideas are being, fostered, and when a theory has merit, it is distributed to the people and hopefully makes the world better. That's the perspective that we would take on it. But that's not the perspective that they see. They don't see it as a positive thing. They see it as an ideology, which in their mind means an indoctrination that is being used to brainwash kids. The organization does seem to be pretty careful to avoid any mention of book banning or any kind of calls to action as far as challenging books. They spend a long time kind of proving that libraries and schools are recommending these books or using them in programming or curriculum. And I assume that that is because then they can say, well, we're not saying you need to ban it, we're saying you shouldn't be promoting it. I highly doubt that most readers of this article will interpret it this way. They will probably go and request that it be banned or challenge it, but the organization itself doesn't advocate for this, but they do encourage readers to send in tips about other books that could be added to the list. Now, this brings us to the way that I perceive the right as being overestimated. I completely understand that it seems like they have to know what they're doing. They have to know that they are being racist and they are being bigoted in, disputing LGBTQ plus and all of this stuff. And in large part, it doesn't matter whether they know it or not, because that is the impact of their actions. And that is ultimately the only thing that matters. But if you want to discuss this with anyone, if you want to try to have any impact on these people, I would encourage you to open your mind to the idea that they may not know. They should know. They absolutely, without question, should know. But they may not know. And there are certainly people who do. There were people on January 6th wearing t-shirts about the slaughter of Jews and how there should have been more and such. And they obviously know that they are being anti-Semitic. But there are other people peripherally or aligned with this movement who think that those are outliers and that they are not that way themselves. It doesn't give them any excuse for what they're doing, but you have to hold that true along with the truth that they may genuinely not know. So if you go up to them and say, "You're being a racist pig," they're just going to be like, "No, I'm not," and they're going to go home and sleep just fine. So you have to find another way to connect with them. You have to find other ways, and the best ways to do that are stories, allegories. It is through a lot of these books that are trying to be banned, and that's why it's so important to not allow that to happen, because they do have an impact, and that's why they want to ban them, because they know that it has an impact. Yeah, I see a lot of self-awareness attributed to the far right that for the most part just isn't there. Although it should be, it isn't. And so we're not going to get anywhere by assuming that these people know that they are being racist and bigoted. I didn't either. An uncomfortable truth for a lot of liberals is that you are too. It's really easy to sit on a pedestal and think that, oh, I'm not like those people, but you may be doing this in a different capacity yourself. I may be, probably am, racist or bigoted in a lot of ways that I don't currently see in myself. So if you would like someone to be able to engage with you in an educational, productive, straightforward manner about those things, you need to extend that same thing to the far right. It may not be productive in every situation to do this. Not everybody is ready. There is no use in engaging with people who have no interest in engaging with you. All that does is waste your energy. But if you are someone who has the time and the resources and the spoons and the mental capacity and emotional capacity to engage with people, I would encourage you to try it if it is someone that you do perceive as being willing to discuss things, being willing to see the other side of it at least a little bit. So, back to the original point of this video. There are so many amazing books on these lists, a lot of old standbys and favorites, many that people have already talked about, a lot of incredible ones that I haven't read yet that I fully intend to, but I will mention a few that I have loved that I haven't seen many people talk about recently. A total classic that was a favorite a few years ago when I read it, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and this was challenged for claiming the work preaches bitterness and hatred toward white people and encourages deviant behavior because of references to lesbianism, premarital sex, and profanity. This does have sexual assault of a child in it. It is heartbreaking, it is awful, but this is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. It's a memoir, it's a true experience, so I don't know how you can possibly want to ban someone telling their life story, but here we are. Can't recommend this enough if it's something that you can handle reading incredible. I definitely want to read the rest of her series of autobiographies or memoirs as well. The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls is another memoir. If you forced me to pick maybe 3 top books of all time, this would probably currently be in that list. I haven't reread it in a while, but I would like to reread it very soon. So I'd like to see if it deserves to be there. This was banned from many schools and even some libraries due to the strong sexual scenes and situations dealing with alcoholism and abuse. This is one of the best depictions of emotional abuse that I have ever read. I think that she captured it so perfectly. She talked about the good and the bad, and how complicated it is and how you have to hold both of those things true at once. Some people have perceived that as glorifying abuse or glorifying alcoholism. I didn't see it that way at all, but I do recommend this greatly. I also really did like the movie. The book is better, but you know. Finally, another book that I would like to reread very soon, The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. So this is a YA book about a very young lesbian. She loses both of her parents and she is sent to live with a very conservative aunt who does eventually send her to a conversion camp for gay kids. It is very, very sad, obviously, but it's also beautiful, atmospheric. I remember it capturing kind of the spirit of being a teen, particularly in a rural area, very, very well. This one's kind of complicated. It was challenged in a summer reading program. So I'm just going to read kind of a compilation of the article, and I'll link it below, along with a quote from the author. Officials said Danforth's book was initially removed in June because of profane language, not sexual orientation, according to Delaware Online. Still, Danforth and others said they believed the gay subject matter was actually the incentive. Posner, the school board's vice president, is quoted as saying, "As I understand it, the main reason it's been put forth is the language, and I've reviewed the other books on the list, and they all have the language in it as well." So the author wrote, "I'm proud that The Miseducation of Cameron Post is now in the company of so many novels that have been banned and challenged and censored throughout history. Many of them among my all-time favorites, the very books that shaped me as a reader, a writer, and a person. It seems that everyone except you knows that censoring or even attempting to censor a book only makes it more appealing to curious readers, which certainly seems to be true in this case." That is probably the perfect conclusion to this video. Thank you very much to Brian for tagging me, and let me know in the comments your favorite banned books, what you think about the whole far-right thing, anything you want to discuss. Please leave it in the comments, and I will see you in the next